You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Bonati Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Bonati Spine procedures, Alfred Bonati, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Bonati and your host, Kimberly Brumell.
Thank you for joining us on American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Brumell, joined by Ethan Euchre.
Glad to be here as always.
Jeff Wagstaff.
Thank you for having me, Kimberly.
And world-renowned orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Alfred Bonati of the Bonati Spine Institute. And with
almost always be here.
Almost always happy to be
Almost
here.
always.
All right. Well, that's better than not happy at all. So that's a good start.
Mentally, anyway.
I think we all, at a time or two, feel that way, sir.
Every now and then. But we're ready to go today.
Yes. Well, the one place Dr. Bonati is laser focused would be at his Bonati Spine Institute, where they bring about true patient resolve. Now, if you've had the screws put to you by other lesser spine institutes, don't be worried, because even if you've suffered failed back surgeries, you can be fixed at the Bonati Spine Institute. They have 98.75% patient-reported success, and over 50,000 procedures have been performed. So no worries. And if you're being told that you need to be slit down the front, slit down the back, and kind of flayed like a fish, will never happen at the Bonati Spine Institute. With that said, we have quite an exciting program. Mm-hmm. We have Marguerite Ellis-Offson. She's going to be on to talk about autism and how that affected her twins.
Well, here's what's interesting about this story. She had twins, a boy and a girl.
Right.
One of them was quote unquote normal, and the other one fell on the autism spectrum. And, I know we've covered autism on the show before, but I've never heard of that.
I know.
So,
neither did I. I discussed this with Dr. Bonati.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, it can happen.
How one of the twins can be autistic and the other one isn't. That's just odd to me. So I wanted to talk to Marguerite about it. It's interesting.
And then our friend David Jolly has joined us again to talk about the ongoing veterans debacle. So we'll hear his take and what steps he's taking to make sure that we can finally get to the bottom of things and deliver the military veterans the service they so need. And then, of course, we'll hear what's new in American medicine today. But up first,
in today's Back to Life segment, we will talk to a patient of the Bonati Spine Institute who went from living a life that was restricted by pain and discomfort through their journey of finding the Bonati Spine Institute and are now living pain-free.
it is my pleasure to introduce to the program, calling in from Ashland, Ohio, is Diane Kolka. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you have such an incredible story. I mean, why don't we just start with, how did you come to be in pain? And then walk us through that process of arriving at the Bonati Spine Institute.
Okay. Well, my story kind of expands over 11 years, but I am trying to keep it condensed so we can meet your time frame.
Okay.
It all started back in 2005, and I was working as a nurse, and I noticed I was having a lot of low back discomfort, and it started off being achy.
Right.
And then within about 3 years, it progressed to where I was having problems sitting and standing.
Sure.
And then at that time, that 3-year time period, it started to also, I had tightness and tenderness to my right, mid, and low back area, which I think would be the L3, L4, L5 area. And then also I had discomfort in my buttocks and hip.
Okay.
So work started to become very difficult, and then I sought the normal treatments. I did the rest, the heat, the ice, stretching, over-the-counter medications, and then about 2008, I went to a chiropractor and had the usual workup. The doctor said my pelvis was off kilter, which led to numerous adjustments, and he prescribed a belt to keep my hip stabilized. I think it was the SI joint area.
Wow.
And then I started seeing pain management specialists and started to receive injections in my back.
Right.
I had asked the doctor, I said, what would be possibly causing all of this? And he said, well, probably from being a nurse for many years, the standing, the lifting, the twisting.
Sure.
If I had any accidents in the past, childbirth, I had a 9-pound, 6-ounce child.
Right.
And then just the normal wear and tear of the spine and the pelvis from doing your home care, your routines every day, such as sweeping, laundry, and yard work.
Okay.
Then by 2011, I started to move more slowly and cautiously. The pain medications were no longer working, and all the other treatments that I was trying, the normal medications, the things that people normally try. And then I started to develop constant pinching around the L3, L4 area. I mean, it just was a constant pinching. It drove me crazy.
I bet.
And then the pain was then also starting to expand down my legs to my foot and my ankles. So walking started to become more difficult. Started limping. My legs became very tired after working only 4 hours. I also had problems being able to put on my shoes, being able to bend over, pick anything up off the floor. And at that point, I think my depression and anxiety started to hit really hard. I think it was already in the process, but by this time, it's like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do?
Right.
So, Diane, at this point, you had been in pain for 6-7 years?
At least.
Yes.
So what finally led you to seek out treatment at the Bonati Spine Institute?
Well, I was just going to tell you that I had went to OSU to see a specialist for the chronic back pain. And when I was seeing him, I done months of therapy and traction, spinal manipulation, but everything there, nothing worked either. So I was getting very discouraged. And I think when I was going through all those therapies, it went on for months and months, and my pain started to escalate. I was, I'm getting there. I was having all these problems concentrating. My legs started to feel like there was 20 pounds of concrete in them, and felt like there were rocks in my feet. Felt like I was walking on rocks. Felt like there was knife pain, like people stabbing me in my leg with knives.
Yeah.
Everything became an effort at that point, and with that, like I said, an effort. I mean, anything I did was an effort. Taking a shower, eating, talking, everything became an effort. I couldn't stand noise. After work, I'd go home and go directly to bed.
Right.
And I wanted to lay on my back all the time, and I just wanted to be left alone. Well, the OSU doctor, this is going to answer your question.
Sure.
The OSU doctor said to me, at one point, after months of treatment, he said there was nothing more he could do for me. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, are you kidding?
Right.
And I was thinking, I said, well, can't someone Roto-Root or something in there? I said, it's pinching. Something's pinching. And he said, well, I wouldn't recommend a fusion for you because you're 49. And he offered no other suggestions. So I went home and had a major breakdown and just cried. And I thought, oh, my God, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? I thought, I'm only 47.
Right.
I can't live another 20, 30 years like this. And I thought, what's going to happen? So I turned to God and I prayed, and I told him it was all up to him, 100%. And I was to the point in my life that I thought, okay, I've done so well not becoming a drug addict. And I said to God, I'm going to have to become a drug addict, or I'm going to have to become an alcoholic or a drug addict combination to help me with the pain. Or I said, I'm going to come and see you. I felt like those were my three options. I felt like I had no other options. And then miraculously, I don't know when it happened, how soon after all that, but I started to research the internet, and I thought someone out there has got to be able to help me.
Right.
And I came across the Laser Spine Institute that we here in Ohio see. It's not your facility. It's the ones that are all over America.
Right.
And when I talked to them, I wasn't real sure about going to them. I just had a strange feeling talking to them. I just didn't feel comfortable. And I thought, okay, well, let me research some more. Well, and I came across Bonati. And, you know, I read the web page. They said they'd do the free MRI. I had that read, talked to the patient advocate, and then I felt like, wow, the light is starting to shine. I had a glimmer of hope shining through my darkness, you know, and that, like you said, this darkness has been going on for so long.
Yeah.
And
so as a nurse, someone who works in the healthcare profession, though, you saw a distinct difference when you started looking at different treatments and felt very comfortable. Would it be fair to say with Bonati?
Yes.
Okay.
I was scared at first because I kept thinking, I don't know these people from Adam.
Sure.
And my family and friends were all thinking, you're crazy. Why would you go to Florida? And I looked at them and I said, you don't realize, and that's the hardest thing, is that people don't realize what you're going through because they can't see it.
Sure.
And they just think you're making things up. But I said, I have to go and see this facility, check it out, and see if they can help me.
Right. Well,
and
obviously it had to be bad if you were contemplating suicide. So
exactly.
We're running up towards the end of the segment, but you made your way into the Bonati Spine Institute. Can you briefly describe that evaluation process and what the surgery was like for you?
Yes. Dr. Grossmith was my doctor, and when he told me he could help me, I started to cry tears of relief and gave him a hug.
Sure.
He was so awesome. I just loved him, and everybody there, from the front desk to billing to the doctors, everyone was very courteous, professional, and everybody was there to answer my questions.
Right.
I felt very comfortable. I felt more confident. I felt like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I felt like I hit the lottery, basically, thinking someone's going to help me to get my life back.
Diane?
The surgery, yes.
During the surgery at the Bonati Spine Institute, as you know, Dr. Bonati uses something called a conscious IV sedation, which allows you to be relaxed, but you're awake, you're alert during surgery, so you can interact with the surgeon. Do you recall the surgery? Did you watch?
Yes.
And how did the procedure go?
I thought it was awesome. I know people probably think it's weird, but I think being a nurse, I thought it was awesome to be able to lay there on the table and actually see what was going on. To me, that felt like I was also being a participation in the process, and I vaguely remember them saying, you know, move and things like that, you know, because they want you to move somewhat towards the end of the procedure to make sure your pain's been eradicated. So it's like you can remember, but yet you have amnesia. But I thought it was very awesome. I think the procedures went well. I was glad I was able to be that participation factor of watching and hearing. That kind of alleviated my stress, so I made sure I knew that they are targeting what needs to be targeted.
After the surgery, how was your recuperation? How was your recovery?
Oh, excellent. To me, the pain was way worse than anything else. Everything else was a piece of cake for me. It was wonderful. The staff was wonderful. You're a little goofy afterwards. I had the epidural injection that they give you the next day, and I would highly recommend that to everybody. I guess you can either be sedated with that or not sedated.
Right.
I never was sedated because Dr. Hirschauer is really proficient at what he does, and it's like done really fast, and your recovery's a lot less too.
So when did you feel relief of the pain that brought you in? Did you feel it on the table? Did you feel it in recovery?
I think I've had a lot of issues, so I've had numerous surgeries, and the pain slowly started to go away, but then new symptoms would occur,
incrementally,
and that's what they said would happen.
Right.
So that, you know, once you get rid of the worst symptom, other symptoms may come. So I've had numerous surgeries, and I just had my last one here about 2 weeks ago, and I feel like I am 95% better.
Okay.
And I know in time I will get to that 100 just because I've only been 2 weeks post-op. I feel like I don't have that pressure anymore, no pain. I'm just, I have twinges, but it could be just from the post-op swelling,
Sure.
Putting pressure on the nerves or something. But other than that, this is the best I have felt in a long time. And my family is like, wow, your whole personality has changed.
Well, that's so good, and so glad to hear that you shared it with us.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through your story. I mean, you had been through so much, and I'm so glad that you were guided to come here to the Bonati Spine Institute. Thank you so much.
And I thank the Bonati Spine Institute so much and Dr. Alford for inventing all this stuff and helping other people. And I just hope other people listen and get in there. Get it done.
There is hope.
All right.
Yes, there is. There is hope.
You take care.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you
Diane.
for joining us on American Medicine
thank
today.
you.
Have a good one.
Coming up,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Coming up after the break, we're going to speak with Marguerite Ellisofson about the autism twins. Stay tuned. Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonati created, perfected, and patented the Bonati spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonati invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati spine procedures, they consistently reflect over 94% patient satisfaction. 45,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Nearly half our patients suffer from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonati succeeds where others fail.
You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Bonati Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Bonati spine procedures, Alfred Bonati, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Bonati and your host, Kimberly Brumell.
Thanks for joining us on American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Brumell, joined by Ethan Euchre.
Glad to be here.
Jeffrey Wagstaff.
Thank you for having me, Kimberly.
World-renowned orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Alfred Bonati of the Bonati Spine Institute.
Hello.
Well, we're excited because joining us right now is Marguerite Ellisofson, a New York City writer and author of My Perfect Family, What Happens When One Twin Has Autism. So thank you for joining us on the show, Marguerite.
My pleasure.
And I wanted to start off just by saying how odd this is. I mean, we've covered autism. My nephew's autistic, so I have a personal passion for the topic. And I have never heard of a set of twins being born where one of them is on the spectrum and one of them is not.
Right.
How common is that, Marguerite?
Actually, it's more common than you think. I've actually met a number of people who have that situation. There's a woman who's an Asperger lady who has 3 children, and she has a set of twin girls, and one is on the spectrum and one isn't. There's a Hollywood celebrity, I think whose name escapes me at the moment, and she actually went on some television show, and she has twins, and one of them is on the spectrum. It's, I think, the boy. And the producer of, and somebody else I know, a producer has in Hollywood has children, again, a boy and a girl, and one with and one without. And I think that, it's like when you have fraternal twins, they're really just like any set of siblings. They just happen to pop out of the oven together at the same time. You know?
That's
they're
true.
Genetically different.
That's true, because the identicals, obviously, they're genetically exactly the same, whereas fraternals, like you said, are no different than other sets of siblings. So that makes sense.
I'm going to ask you something that is really taking my curiosity here. How they communicate?
How do they communicate?
Yeah.
Well, my
do
daughter
they communicate independently? They have a good relationship? How do they play together? How they do it?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Actually, they have a sort of difficult and complicated relationship because my son is, I guess, neurotypical with a touch of ADHD, but he tried very hard to engage my daughter when he was like a little boy, and obviously it creates strain when one twin is developing at a fast rate or at the regular rate, and one is lagging behind. My daughter was jealous of my son. My son was resentful of my daughter because she was embarrassing. She had meltdowns. And, he felt very bad that he couldn't connect with her and also that she was so jealous of him. But I guess over time, they've learned they do love each other. If they don't always like each other, they love each other. Very much so. There's a bond. And they always show up whenever they can for each other's, sporting events. Samantha always went to Matt's baseball games and things at his school, and he always went to everything of hers, including in college. During finals week, she was in a movie, which was a big deal, obviously, that my daughter was in a movie. And he came home to see the premiere, and then got back on the train and went back up to Vassar. I mean, there's love there, even if they don't talk, and even if they don't hang out together or have extended conversations. It's a tricky question. I've done the best I can, and maybe haven't been quite as successful in helping them bond with each other as I hope I've been, and helping them each use their individual potentials.
How quickly did you notice the difference between your two children, and how did you kind of navigate that disparity?
Well, actually, it's a mixed blessing having twins, because we could see immediately that the answer to the question was pretty early. I don't remember exactly how old, but 6-7 months we knew something wasn't right with our daughter. And my brother-in-law was a pediatrician, and his wife was a psychologist. And we'd go for a family. One day we went for a family holiday, and we said, we know there's something not right with Samantha. And my brother-in-law looked up at me and said, I think she might have pervasive developmental delays. I mean, nobody actually said the A word back then. I mean, it took me many years, actually, to really actually just realize that, all these different labels, they were part of the spectrum, PDD, PDD-NOS, and we had atypical autism. But as I said, the milestones, also, I think when you have twins, especially if they're premature, they watch them to be sure that they reach the milestones adjusting for their age. So if they're 6 weeks early, you have to wait 6 weeks longer, to see if they're doing, what Johnny around the corner is doing, or somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. Right. So you become more sensitive to that, whereas, I'm guessing that if you have just one child, you just enjoy watching that child develop at his or her own rate, and you're not particularly comparing him or her to anybody else. I mean, maybe if it's a younger sibling, you'll remember that the other one did something sooner or later, but I think in general you're more relaxed about it.
We're seeing the prevalence of autism increase over the years. I'm reading here that 1 in 150 children were diagnosed with autism in 2000, and then the statistics are now 1 in 68.
That's correct.
So it's 1 in 42 boys. Mm-hmm. What do you think is making that occur?
Well, I think there's a number of factors involved. I think they're getting better at diagnosing it, and diagnosing it properly, although I still think they're doing a better job with the boys than the girls, and I think that partly explains why there are more boys than girls. Okay. More, and as more kids are being diagnosed, they're paying more attention to it. They're realizing that early intervention can make a very big difference in the lives of these children. So the sooner you start, speech therapy, occupational therapy, ABA, whatever it is that a parent decides is best for their individual child, I think that's also led to more and faster diagnosis. When my children were born, there was no Autism Speaks, there were no internet chat rooms, there were no support groups. Your kid had a meltdown on the street and people looked at you like you were a bad parent or you had a spoiled brat. Mm-hmm. And I think it's changed a lot since then, and, for the most part, for the better. Yeah,
for sure. Well, Marguerite, it's certainly an interesting read, full of advice for parents. Thank God for your case that it's, there's a lot more information out there for parents nowadays, for sure. And we appreciate you joining us and want people to go pick up your book. Where can they get it?
Amazon.com or mypictureperfectfamily.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Marguerite Ellis-Offen, a New York City writer and author of My Perfect Family, What Happens When One Twin
Excuse me, it's
autism.
My Picture Perfect Family.
My Picture Perfect Family. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's insane the levels that the autism are at nowadays. We don't know why, really.
I know they try to say that sometimes the vaccinations can cause it, and then they try to say it doesn't. There's all this big hoopla right now in Hollywood where they try to shut down a movie exposing the truth.
Yep.
We'll see. Anyway, make sure you stay tuned because coming up after the break, you'll hear more. You're listening to American Medicine Today. Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonati created, perfected, and patented the Bonati spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonati invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati spine procedures, they consistently reflect over 94% patient satisfaction. 45,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Nearly half our patients suffer from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonati succeeds where others fail.
This is the first time that I am pain-free after 18 years, and it's just wonderful. I love it.
Phenomenal results, no pain whatsoever.
My pain is virtually gone, nothing short of a miracle.
Those surgeries gave me my life back.
Already I feel like a new person.
I'm going home new. I can chase my grandbaby now, I can garden, I can cook, and I'm really thrilled. The outcome has been remarkable.
I feel 100% better.
It's like a miracle.
It was phenomenal. It literally did change my life.
I was in a wheelchair at that time, and I left here walking.
Every single pain that I had when I came here is gone.
I'm ready to go home and feel great. This place is great. Thank you.
Everything that they said they would do, they have done, and I'm very, very satisfied and happy with those results.
I knew in surgery, in fact I told the surgeon when he relieved the pain off the nerve.
The pain is gone. I'm feeling wonderful.
I have no pain. I feel better than I felt in 4 years from the surgery. It was almost immediate relief.
Today I am totally pain-free, which is just amazing. It's fantastic.
It definitely works. I mean, I really don't know what else to tell you. I'm happy.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonati created, perfected, and patented the Bonati spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonati invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati spine procedures, they consistently reflect over 94% patient satisfaction. 45,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Nearly half our patients suffer from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonati succeeds where others fail.
You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Bonati Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Bonati spine procedures, Alfred Bonati, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Bonati and your host, Kimberly Bermel.
Thank you for joining us for American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bermel, joined by Ethan Euchre.
Glad to be here.
Jeff Wagstaff.
Thank you for having me, Kimberly.
World-renowned orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Alfred Bonati at the Bonati Spine Institute.
Thank you.
Now, this segment is so important. So joining us is Republican U.S. Congressman David Jolly, a friend of the show, and he's of Florida. He's a returning guest, and he's been doing a lot to help the veterans throughout this time in Washington. He's here to talk about some of the recent scandals that are plaguing the VA. So thank you again for joining us.
Well, it's always great to be with you. Thank you.
I just saw recently on your Facebook page, Congressman Jolly, that you mentioned that every 65 minutes a veteran takes his or her own life, which we may have seen on Facebook and social media. There's been different campaigns trying to spread awareness to this. And you also stated in your Facebook post that you're doing a bunch of work with the Gold Star Wives of America. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. You know, this is an issue we just simply have to get right. Yeah. It's a heartbreaking rate for veterans that choose to take their own life. And so what do we do about it? One of the things we try to do, and Republicans and Democrats in Congress have tried to do, is expand the available therapies and services to particularly young vets through the VA. If there are complementary therapies that a vet believes addresses some of their mental and emotional health challenges, then we should make sure those are available. The other issue we're looking into right now, without prejudging any outcome, is let's begin to look at the number of prescriptions that each veteran is on at the time at which they choose to take their own life. So I've introduced legislation supported by the Gold Star Wives, by AMVETS, the Fleet Reserve Officers Association, that would require the VA to create an inventory, if you will, of the prescriptions that a veteran is on the day they choose to take their own life. From there, we can get some of the brighter minds in medicine to begin to examine if there is any effect, particularly in the area of psychotropic drugs and opioids. You know, a young vet last week told me that when his friend took his own life, he was on 34 different prescriptions that had been prescribed cumulatively around the VA system throughout the country. Clearly, there's room for improvement.
Obviously. I mean, there's even recent articles that said how disgraceful wait times at VA hospitals have been, and they've led to over 300,000 deaths. I mean, quite honestly, that's unacceptable. What type of recourse do the family members have, or do they?
Well, you know, there's not a lot of recourse when it comes to government facilities. But I will tell you, and this is an important way to make sure we describe the 300,000. 300,000 veterans, according to the IG, died while on a waiting list.
Right.
So the causation is obviously something to study. However, we do know, because the VA has confessed to this under oath before Congress, under direct questioning, frankly, from myself, the VA IG agreed that the negligence of the VA had contributed to the deaths of veterans. We know that coming out of the Phoenix scandal. Unfortunately, a recent IG report that was just provided to Congress said they've identified 7 other facilities where wait times were manipulated. There are 30 more being investigated. At the end of the day, we know the VA has to do better. They're pursuing a new scheduling system which would hopefully address this, but I still stand by the notion of simply give every veteran who qualifies for VA health care a Freedom Card and say, you choose where you want to go. If you're satisfied with the VA, stay in the VA. But if you want to go outside, no permission needed. You've earned it.
Well, David, you know that I talk and I speak all the time against the things with the VA because we were the first ones talking about the abuse that happens in the VA all the time. My problem is why you guys continue maintaining the VA an operational facility. Why you guys pass laws like the preferred card, and when the VA the veteran goes to a doctor, they need to be accepting Medicare. If you and Medicare pays so little that nobody wants to see those people, so you guys pass a law, but then with the next hand erase what you are doing good. The VA needs to be close. It needs to be a card that they need to be sent to every veteran that has the privilege to go wherever they want to go. Why is it so difficult to do something like that? You know that there's corruption. You know that there's misservice. Right now, they are trying to remove, I don't remember how many billions they gave to the VA, and somebody's asking to use these billions for paying kickbacks in employees. And how that thing happen?
Sure. So a couple points here. One, elections matter. When the VA crisis happened in Phoenix, and Congress considered what ultimately was the choice card, which allowed more outside choices, but it required permission of the VA based on mileage distance away from a facility or a wait list. Understand how that was arrived at. We had a conservative Republican majority in the House, with Jeff Miller as chairman, one of the more conservative members you will see, negotiating this with a Democrat-controlled Senate whose VA chairman, are you ready for this, was Bernie Sanders, a Democrat socialist.
That I believe.
So elections matter because Bernie Sanders insisted on greater protections for the bureaucracy, greater labor protections. He resisted any accountability provisions to allow the VA to fire people, and he did not want to provide greater choice. Now, this is interesting. That choice program, as you mentioned, was funded with $10 billion in emergency money. That money expires at the end of next year. Now, we have to ensure that the choice continues, but I think this is an opportunity to finally shatter this bureaucracy and give a veteran true choice. You mentioned what to do with the VA. There are three schools of thought. One is to keep the VA in place and keep pouring more money into it. That's the Bernie Sanders school of thought, if you will. Mm-hmm. Another would be to privatize it entirely. There are some who have advocated that. One of the ideas that has a lot of traction, though, is what if you had a VA that focused on service-specific conditions, military sexual trauma, Agent Orange, complex amputations, PTSD, and then allowed the life cycle care, if you will, to be provided simply by outside private providers. You would have a VA that only focuses on service-specific specialties, and then the rest of the care would be provided by private providers. That might be a way forward, and frankly, I think the younger generation of vets would appreciate that because we do see a divergence between, say, the Korea, Vietnam, World War II generation preferring the VA and some of the younger vets looking to go outside.
I have a question, though. When I asked if the families have any recourse, and you said no, not really, why is it that there is no accountability and no recourse for the families, but in the private sector there would be?
Well, that is because it's a government agency, and most government agencies are protected from liability except in extremely negligent situations. Now, I will tell you, I think many of these cases have arisen to that, and you have seen some VA settlements. Right. Legally, you have seen VA settlements.
But we've seen settlements, but we haven't seen a change in the administration. Don't you think that's problematic?
I certainly do. So the VA secretary that has come in has promised changes. He is trying to address them, but I will tell you they have not been swift enough.
Okay.
But he is the one who's trying to get this money to pay other things that they are not directed to the veterans.
Well, sure, and greater construction.
Okay.
Hey, a facility in Colorado that was supposed to cost $300 million,
way
in a period
over
of
budget.
2 years turned into $1.6 to $1.7 billion
yes.
in construction money.
Yeah,
Congressman Jolly, first of all, thanks again for joining us. Always good to talk to you, and we sincerely appreciate the efforts that you take to Washington to protect the veterans who serve for our country. One of the points that you had said is possibly somewhat privatizing the VA. My question is, and no disrespect to anybody intended, but the government, the same people who are running the post office and the IRS, and that inefficiency, it scares me to think that they're going to suddenly run the VA efficiently.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on appointing someone to completely privatize the Veterans Administration so that the money, instead of going to the VA, goes directly to these soldiers and veterans who need this medical care?
So here's what you run into. 90% of the veterans you talk to want to stay in the VA. That's a notional estimation, but listen, I talk to veterans every single day. The vast majority do want to stay in the VA. Now, here's what I've introduced. The Freedom Card that I mentioned to give every veteran complete choice, here's why it matters. Because I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, you would see veterans at an increasing rate beginning to go outside. And then we could measure the attrition rate of patients within the VA and begin to address if there were closures required, if there were reforms required. But I believe ultimately the private sector would outcompete the VA. It protects the choice of the veteran who believes that they have earned the right to be treated at a VA facility if they choose to. But over the next decade or so, I think you would see the VA begin to be outcompeted by the private sector because the veteran would be choosing it.
I do.
Well, let me tell you why I believe the VA, the veterans wants to stay in the VA. One of the major troubles that the veterans have is a tremendous amount of narcotics that they've been delivered to them with no control. So when you tell a veteran that he's going to go to a private physician, and the private physician is going to look at him and say, why are you taking OxyContin in this amount and all this time? They are going to regulate that. Right. That is a panic for these people.
Sure.
So we need to have an education. That is why you have a problem with the veterans that they are trying to stay in the VA.
I had a veteran, a Vietnam-era veteran, walk into my office in Seminole with a backpack. And you could tell just physically he was shaken. He was not in a good place physically, mentally, emotionally. He turned his backpack upside down on my desk, and out dropped 30 to 40 pill bottles, all of which he had been prescribed. And you understand, one, there is never a reason for somebody to be on that many pills. But then how can you expect a patient to understand how to administer those types of medications?
Right.
I agree with you, and frankly, on the suicide issue, and listen, I'm a layperson. I respect that others understand the sciences of mental health, emotional health, and physical sciences better than I do. But I do think it's worth studying. What are our veterans being prescribed? And is there any causation to a veteran's decision to take their own life? It's critical we resolve that.
Thank you for all the work that you've been doing, Congressman Jolly. Just real quick, your Freedom Card, do they need approval from anyone at the VA to be able to get it, or is everyone issued that card? Because the problem that we're seeing is when it comes to the authorization to allow them to have it, that's where the delays are.
It eliminates all the authorizations, all the requirements. It says, if you've served in uniform and qualify for VA health benefits, here's your card. You choose where you want to go.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. That's great news. We hope to have you on again to discuss the continuing problems that plague the VA. U.S. Congressman David Jolly of Florida.
Thanks as always,
talking
Congressman.
about the scandals. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
God bless.
Have a good one.
You're listening to American Medicine Today. Make sure you stay tuned. After the break, we're going to hear what's new in American medicine today. Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonati created, perfected, and patented the Bonati spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonati invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati spine procedures, they consistently reflect over 94% patient satisfaction. 45,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Nearly half our patients suffer from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonati succeeds where others fail.
This is the first time that I am pain-free after 18 years. And it's just wonderful. I love it.
Phenomenal results. No pain whatsoever.
My pain is virtually gone. Nothing short of a miracle.
Those surgeries gave me my life back.
Already, I feel like a new person.
I'm going home new. I can chase my grandbaby now. I can garden. I can cook. And I'm really thrilled. The outcome has been remarkable.
I feel 100% better.
It's like a miracle.
It was phenomenal. It literally did change my life.
I was in a wheelchair at that time, and I left here walking.
Every single pain that I had when I came here is gone.
I'm ready to go home and feel great. This place is great. Thank you.
Everything that they said they would do, they have done, and I'm very, very satisfied and happy with those results.
I knew in surgery, in fact, I told the surgeon when he relieved the pain off the nerve.
The pain is gone. I am feeling wonderful.
I have no pain. I feel better than I felt in 4 years from the surgery. It was almost immediate relief.
Today I am totally pain-free, which is just amazing. It's fantastic.
It definitely works. I mean, I really don't know what else to tell you. I'm happy.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonati created, perfected, and patented the Bonati spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonati invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati spine procedures, they consistently reflect over 94% patient satisfaction. 45,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Nearly half our patients suffer from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonati succeeds where others fail.
You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Bonati Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Bonati spine procedures, Alfred Bonati, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Bonati and your host, Kimberly Bermel.
Thank you for joining us on American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bermel, joined by our friends Ethan Euchre.
Glad to be here.
Jeff Wagstaff.
Yes, I am.
And world-renowned orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Alfred Bonati of the Bonati Spine Institute.
Thank you for having me.
Now, usually we do What's New in Medicine Today, but
And I think it's still part of that.
Okay, well, let's do it.
Let's look at what's new in medicine today, featuring Alfred Bonati, MD.
Doc wanted to rage a little bit today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, let's hear it.
Well, I was last week in a risk management program placed by the American Medical Association. Unbelievable. Is an unbelievable abuse to physicians.
How so, Doc?
They restrict the freedom and everything is planned and plotted to restrict the freedom of the doctors and increase the defense and the mechanism of protection for politicians, lawyers, and insurance companies. Mm-hmm. So this is something that we need to start to organize. We need to start to think seriously. Doctors, they need to put together their hands and start to think that it's absolutely necessary to create another American Medical Association. American Medical Association is sold totally to insurance, to legal systems. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Board of Medicine is another joke. You have politicians sitting there. Right. Some of these politicians, even they are being charged with charges like fraudulent behaviors on the market, mm-hmm. and things like that. So and they remain there.
Yeah.
Then there are situations that they need to be studied. Sure. We need to discuss with American Medical Association what's the future of doctors, mm-hmm. and we need to have a protection for them.
Well, I would like to know with the American Medical Association, when did it become about not protecting the doctors?
Well, the day that they discovered the code system. Uh-huh. They sold the code to insurance companies. They got in bed with insurance companies. They got money, millions and millions of dollars mm-hmm. from the insurance companies. So everything is restricted to doctors. Right. And now the prostitution of physicians is incredible. They are hiring physicians that usually the least capable, the individual who is defenseless in the market because they cannot produce, they cannot do anything in life. Mm-hmm. So they are being hired by these insurance companies to deny the privilege of the patients that they have the right to be treated, but they restrict these treatments. And the restriction of the treatments every single day is more abusive. So you need to be very careful what is happening in this, and doctors, they need to get together and start to talk about how are we going to defend medicine.
Isn't it a conflict of interest, though?
They don't care about.
They're supposed to represent
they have
doctors,
they have the lawyers
in bed with the insurance companies.
Well, they have the lawyers on the side, the insurance company with the money, and then they have the hospitals in bed with them, and then everything is a plot against the doctor. The problem is we are going to avoid the treatment of patients in the future because the patient will be treated for another type of incompetent, mediocre type of a professional.
And that's a look at what's new in medicine today with Alfred Bonati, MD.
Important discussion.
Absolutely. Well, and you also, Doc, have been saying for years that, not only are there a lot of problems with the AMA, but we really need to get doctors together. And,
strong leadership band together.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new group that is coming with the name of American Society of Medicine. And I think you're going to start to see very soon some advertisements in televisions, in radios, so to gather the physicians to put together the program.
Great.
I love it. All right.
Well, that about wraps things up for our flagship station, News Radio 970 WFLA. Make sure you stay tuned for our affiliates because we'll be back.
With more.
Make sure you tweet at Dr. Bonati using hashtag American Medicine Today or hashtag AMT and like us on Facebook. We'll see you next time. Bye. Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonati created, perfected, and patented the Bonati spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonati invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati spine procedures, they consistently reflect over 94% patient satisfaction. 45,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Nearly half our patients suffer from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonati succeeds where others fail.
This is the first time that I am pain-free after 18 years. And it's just wonderful. I love it.
Phenomenal results. No pain whatsoever.
My pain is virtually gone. Nothing short of a miracle.
Those surgeries gave me my life back.
Already, I feel like a new person.
I'm going home new. I can chase my grandbaby now. I can garden. I can cook. And I'm really thrilled. The outcome's been remarkable.
I feel 100% better.
It's like a miracle.
It was phenomenal. It literally did change my life.
I was in a wheelchair at that time, and I left here walking.
Every single pain that I had when I came here is gone.
I'm ready to go home and feel great. This place is great. Thank you.
Everything that they said they would do, they have done, and I'm very, very satisfied and happy with those results.
I knew in surgery, in fact, I told the surgeon when he relieved the pain off the nerve.
The pain is gone. I'm feeling wonderful.
I have no pain. I feel better than I felt in 4 years from the surgery. It was almost immediate relief.
Today I am totally pain-free, which is just amazing. It's fantastic.
It definitely works. I mean, I really don't know what else to tell you. I'm happy.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonati created, perfected, and patented the Bonati spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonati invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati spine procedures, they consistently reflect over 94% patient satisfaction. 45,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Nearly half our patients suffer from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonati succeeds where others fail.